The phone call I got last month felt like a plot twist in someone else's life. Not mine. It was my mother's voice on the line, shaky and tired, saying words I never expected to hear. "We need you. The business isn't going to survive without help." For a second, I didn't even know how to respond. Because this was the same business that kicked me out almost a decade ago. The same parents who looked me in the eye and told me they had to let me go to save money while keeping my lazy older brother on payroll. And now they were practically begging me to return. I wish I could say I felt nothing but smug satisfaction. But the truth is, hearing the desperation in her voice hit me in a place I thought had gone numb. Let me rewind for context. When I was in my early 20s, I wasn't just an employee in my parents' company. I was their backbone. I poured everything into that place. Late nights, weekends, my social life gone. I handled clients who wanted to walk, redesigned outdated systems, and even pulled in new accounts. My brother, on the other hand, was more of a mascot than an employee. He'd wander in late, spent half the day scrolling on his phone, and my parents acted like just showing up made him a hero. So imagine my shock when the company hit a rough patch and my parents called me into their office. I thought they were going to thank me, maybe even give me more responsibility. Instead, they told me I was being let go. Their reasoning: "You're smart. You'll land on your feet. Your brother wouldn't he?" That was the day everything inside me broke. I walked out of that building with nothing. No job, no severance, no acknowledgement of the years I gave them. Just a knowing sense that loyalty meant nothing in my family. Fast forward to now, I rebuilt myself. I clawed my way up in the same industry, working for one of their competitors. I worked harder, smarter, and finally earned the recognition I never got at home. Today, I'm in a leadership role, helping oversee expansion right into the very region my parents' business once dominated. And guess what? Their empire is crumbling. Clients are leaving. Systems are outdated. My brother, shockingly, has magically transformed into a competent adult. And now they're reaching out to me the Sunday fired, asking if I can save what is left. The irony is so thick it almost chokes me. Part of me wants to let them drown, to say, "You made your choice. Leave with it," but another part of me wonders if walking away would haunt me. They're still my parents, and despite everything, a piece of me still wants their approval. So here I am, torn between revenge and responsibility, between bitterness and blood. Do I step back into the fire that once burned me, or do I watch from the sidelines as their legacy goes up in flames? When I finally agreed to meet them, it felt surreal, pulling into the parking lot of the office I once practically lived in. The building hadn't changed much. Same faded brick, same outdated sign with peeling paint, but it looked smaller somehow. Weeds pushing through cracks in the pavement, a couple of windows fogged with age. It didn't look like the bustling hub I remembered. It looked tired, just like my parents sounded on the phone. I sat in my car for a good 5 minutes, debating if I should even go inside. Part of me wanted to turn the key, drive away, and never look back. But another part whispered that I needed to face this. The second I walked in, the air hit me. The same faint mix of burnt coffee and copier toner. Nostalgia mixed with bitterness in my throat. The receptionist, someone I vaguely recognized, blinked at me like she'd seen a ghost. "They're waiting for you," she said, her voice carrying that awkward tension of someone who knows exactly what went down years ago. I opened the office door, and there they were. My mom looked older, thinner. My dad's hair had gone almost completely gray. And sitting in the corner with his phone in hand, as always was Mark. My brother gave me a lazy half-smile, like this was just some casual family reunion. Thanks for coming, my dad said, gesturing to the chair across from them. His tone was polite, too polite, like he was trying to pretend the past didn't exist. I sat crossing my arms. So what is this about? Mom clasped her hands together. We're struggling. You've probably heard. We've lost 3 of our biggest clients this year. The system's R&T, keeping up it's bad. Her eyes flicked to my brother, who suddenly found his phone screen fascinating. I leaned back, studying them. And why exactly do you think I'd be interested in helping? Silence. My dad cleared his throat. Because you know this business better than anyone. Because you're good at what you do. And because we're family. That word, family. It hit me like a hammer. I almost laughed. Family was the reason they fired me in the first place. Remember, they kept Mark because he wouldn't survive without it. They cut me loose because I was resourceful. I glanced at my brother. What is his role in fixing things? I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. Mark shrugged without looking up. I'm still doing sales. Sales? I raised an eyebrow. Last I checked, your idea of sales was sitting on Instagram until a client accidentally emailed you. Hey, that's not fair. He started, but Mom shot him a look that shut him up. Dad leaned forward, his voice firm. We're not here to argue about the past. We're asking you to help us move forward. I stared at him for a long moment. Move forward, easy word for someone who never once apologized for what they did. Finally, I said, you didn't want me when I was the one holding this place together. Now that it's falling apart, suddenly I'm useful again. Forgive me if I'm not exactly eager to throw myself back into the fire. My mom's eyes filled with tears. We made a mistake. We thought we were protecting both of you. But maybe we were wrong. It was the closest thing to an admission of guilt I'd ever heard from them, and it hit me harder than I wanted to admit. But still, I wasn't ready to say yes. So instead, I stood up. I'll think about it, I said flatly. Then I walked out, leaving them in silence. And the truth is, I don't even know what I'm thinking. Part of me wants to swoop in and fix everything just to prove I can. Another part of me wants to watch the whole thing collapse and remind them that actions have consequences. But either way, I know one thing for sure. The balance of power has shifted. For the first time, they need me more than I need them. The call started the next morning. First, a polite voicemail from my mom. Sweetheart, just think about it. Okay. We could really use your help. Then a text from my dad. Let us be practical. This could benefit you too. By the end of the week, I had a full string of missed calls, texts, even emails from both of them. Each message sounded a little more desperate than the last. I ignored most of them at first. But then the guilt crept in. No matter how much anger I carried, it gnawed at me that my parents were pleading. Still, there was also this deep satisfaction, the kind you don't want to admit you enjoy. For years they held the power. They were the ones who decided who was valuable and who wasn't. Now the tables had turned. But of course, Mark couldn't. He resisted getting involved. He called me one evening completely unprompted. His tone was smug, the same way it had been when we were kids. And he got away with something I didn't see. So I hear they're begging you to come back. He said, I didn't. He responded right away, and I just think you should know. I've been holding things together here. They need me, not you. You just make things messy. I left holding things together. That's a creative way to describe running the company into the ground. Careful, he snapped. This is still my territory. I've been here the whole time. You left. That hit me like a punch, not because it was true in the way he meant it, but because he genuinely believed it. I didn't leave, I was pushed out, and the fact that he framed it as abandonment showed just how warped his version of reality had become. Mark, I said, trying not to lose it. You couldn't sell water in a desert. Don't lecture me about who this business needs. He huffed and muttered something under his breath before hanging up the nerve. Even after all this time, he still saw me as the threat. The competition, the one person who could prove how useless he really was. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts spun in circles. I pictured my mom as tired face, my dad as stiff pride, my brother as smugness. And then I pictured myself back in that office, fixing everything, proving them all wrong. But there was another image to me, walking away, letting them choke on the consequences of their choices, watching their empire collapse while I thrived somewhere else. The next day, my dad finally said the words I'd been waiting years to hear. Son, he said over the phone, his voice low and strained, I was wrong about you, about everything. You should have been the one to take over, not your brother. If you come back, I'll make it official. The company will be yours one day. I froze because that was the apology I thought I wanted. The recognition I had dreamed about. But now that it was here, it didn't feel clean. It felt tainted. Because I knew he wasn't saying it out of love or respect. He was saying it out of desperation. And the question gnawed at me. Did I want the business, or did I just want to win? I didn't answer my dad right away. His words hung in the air like smoke from a fire I hadn't decided to put out or let burn. The company will be yours one day. A decade ago, I would have given anything to hear that. Now it felt hollow, like being offered the crown of a kingdom already in ruins. Still, I realized something important in that moment. For the first time, I had leverage. So instead of saying yes or no, I said the one thing that put all the power back in my hands. If you want me to even consider helping, I'm setting the terms. And this time, you don't get to override me. Silence crackled on the line. Then my dad sighed. What terms? First, I said, slowly making sure each word landed. I want full decision-making authority over operations. No interference. If I'm fixing this, I'm doing it my way. That is a big ask, he started. But I cut him off. Second, Mark is out. He doesn't report to me. He doesn't sit in meetings. He doesn't touch client accounts. If he stays, I don't. That one landed like a grenade. I could almost hear my dad's jaw clench through the phone. He is your brother. He is dead weight, I shot back. And you know it if you want me to clean up this mess. I'm not dragging him along for the ride. Those are my terms. Take them or leave them. For a long time, all I heard was breathing on the other end. Finally, my dad muttered, "We'll discuss it." Then the line went dead. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. I had no idea if they'd actually accept. Honestly, part of me didn't care. Just saying the words, just putting those conditions out there, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd lost the day they fired me. Of course, it didn't take long for Mark to retaliate. 2 days later, he showed up, at my apartment. I don't know how he even got my address, probably from my parents, but there he was, pounding on my door like a debt collector. When I opened it, he barged past me without an invitation. "What the hell are you trying to pull?" he demanded. I crossed my arms. "You'll have to be more specific. I heard your little ultimatum. You think you can kick me out of my own family's company?" "Funny," I said. "Last time I checked, it wasn't yours or mine or anyone else. It's a sinking ship, and the only reason they're calling me is because you've been steering it straight into the ground." His face went red. "You think you're better than me. You always have. But guess what Mom and Dad kept me? Not you that should tell you everything." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Yeah, they kept you. And look where that's gotten them. Clients gone. Money bleeding out. The company is one bad quarter away from bankruptcy. So tell me, Mark, how much longer do you think they'll keep you when I'm the one offering to save them?" For the first time in forever, didn't he have a comeback? His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. But no words came out. Finally, he jabbed a finger in my face. "If you push me out, I'll make sure they regret it. You're not the savior here. You're just the replacement." Then he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. And I stood there, adrenaline buzzing through my veins, realizing that this was no longer just about saving a business. This was war. The silence after Mark stormed out didn't last long. The next day, my phone lit up with a string of texts from my mom. "Mark told us what you said. We don't want this to become a fight between brothers. Please, can we talk this through calmly?" I stared at the messages, torn between laughing and throwing my phone across the room. A fight between brothers, that was such a sugar-coated way of describing the truth. This wasn't a sibling spat. This was a battle for control, and deep down my parents knew it. That night Dad called. His voice was tired, heavier than usual. "We're not ready to remove your brother," he admitted. "But we also can't deny we need you. You've got the skills, the drive. We want you back, just not at the cost of pushing Mark out there." It was the same logic they dosed years ago. Protect Mark at all costs. My anger bubbled up again. "Then you don't really want me," I said coldly. "You just want a Band-Aid for the wounds he caused." Before Dad could reply, I hung up. But here's the thing, even as the anger simmered, part of me was already strategizing. If they wouldn't cut Mark loose, maybe I could force the issue. Maybe I could show everyone just how toxic he was to the company. The next week, I kept my distance. But through old contacts and a few friendly competitors, I started hearing whispers. Clients were complaining about delayed orders. Invoices had gone missing. One even said Mark promised them a special discount that never materialized, and when they pressed him on it, he ghosted them for weeks. Classic Mark. But what made my blood boil was what I heard 2 days later. Apparently, he'd even bad-mouthing me to clients, telling them I was unstable, that I had a history of screwing people over, that bringing me back would destroy the company. Why shouldn't he have been surprised? This was his survival instinct kicking in. He knew if I returned, his cushy position would vanish overnight. Still, it stung. Not because I cared what clients thought of me. Now I had my own career, my own reputation, but because it confirmed something I'd suspected for years. My brother wasn't he just lazy. He was manipulative. He was willing to burn everything down if it meant keeping me out. When my mom called again, Her voice was trembling. Sweetheart, things are getting worse. We've lost another account. I don't know what to do. Your father doesn't want to admit it, but we're running out of time. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles ached. Then it's simple. Either you let me take charge, or you watch the company die. There was a pause. A long, painful pause. And then barely above a whisper. My mom said, "What if your brother won't accept that?" I let out a humorless laugh. Then you'll finally see what I've been telling you all along. He is not the solution. He is the problem. We ended the call without resolution. But that night, as I lay awake, I had the strangest feeling. A sense of foreboding. Like Mark, wasn't he just going to sit back and let this play out? No, if I knew him, and I did, he was already planning his next move. And this time, it wouldn't he just be lazy, mistakes, or client blunders. This time it would be personal. I didn't he have to wait long to see what Mark was planning. 3 days later, I got a call from an old client I hadn't spoken to in years. Let us call him Anderson. His voice was sharp, almost hostile. "Is it true you're rejoining your parents' company?" he demanded. I hesitated. "That is not official." "Why?" "Because your brother called me yesterday and said you'd be taking over our account personally. He promised discounts, faster delivery. The works. But when I asked for it in writing, he sent me an email signed with your name. My blood went cold. "An email?" I asked carefully. "Don't play dumb," Anderson snapped. "The signature said you, but the wording sloppy, vague. Didn't he sound like you at all? I wanted to hear it from your mouth. So are you standing behind this?" My jaw clenched. Mark, hadn't he just lied? He deforged my name. He was already planting seeds to make me look like the problem. If the deal went south, guess who would take the blame? Not him. Me. I forced my voice to stay calm. Anderson listened carefully. "I never sent you that email. I haven't signed anything, promised anything, or even stepped foot in that office since the meeting last week. Whatever you got, it wasn't tea from me." Silence. Then a muttered curse. That little he stopped himself. "All right, I believe you. But if he tries this again, I'm done with them, you hear me, done." We hung up, and I sat there staring at my phone. Fury simmering so hot, I thought my skin might burn. Mark, wasn't he just lazy anymore? He was desperate. And desperation made people dangerous. That evening, I drove to my parents' house, unannounced. When Dad opened the door, he looked startled. "What is wrong?" Didn't he bother with small talk? I pulled up the forwarded email Anderson had sent me and shoved the screen toward him. This is what your golden child is doing. Dad's eye scanned the email. His face paled, then hardened. "Are you saying Mark forged your name?" "I'm not saying it. I'm proving it." Mom appeared in the hallway, drying her hands on a towel. "What's going on, your son?" I said, glaring toward the living room. "Is sabotaging the company and dragging my name through the mud in the process." As if on cue, Mark strolled in, holding a can of soda like it was just another lazy afternoon. When he saw me, his smirk faltered, but only for a second. "What now?" he muttered. I spun the phone toward him. "Explain this." He barely glanced at the screen before shrugging. "Clients must be misunderstood." "Misunderstood?" I snapped. "You forged my name, Mark. Do you realize that it's not just unethical? It's illegal. He rolled his eyes. Oh, come on. It was just business. You think you're the only one who can close deals. Newsflash, I can too. Dad's voice thundered louder than I'd ever heard it. Mark, this I sent you some game. Do you have any idea how much trouble this could cause us? But Mark wasn't fazed. He just smirked at me again. That same infuriating smirk he had since childhood. You're not saving anyone, little brother. You're just here to make yourself look good, and I'm not letting you take my spot. Something in me snapped, and I took a step forward. My voice low and sharp. You don't have a spot, Mark. You never did. The only reason you're still standing here is because they've even too blind to see it. But guess what? They're not blind anymore. Mom gasped softly. Dad rubbed his temples, looking like the weight of the world was crushing him. And Mark, he just laughed. A short, bitter laugh that chilled me to my bones. Careful, he said. You think you're winning, but I've got nothing to lose. And that makes me dangerous. For the first time, I believed him. After that night, I knew things wouldn't just calm down. Mark wasn't the type to back off. If anything, calling him out only pushed him to dig in deeper. And sure enough, within a week, the real sabotage began. It started small, odd mistakes in invoices, payments delayed without explanation, a shipment that supposedly never arrived. My parents chalked it up to clerical errors or miscommunication, but I knew better. This wasn't incompetence. It was intentional. Then came the bombshell. I was at work when I got a call from a mutual contact. In the industry, a guy I'll call Henderson. He sounded cautious like. He wasn't sure if he should even be telling me this. Look, he said, I don't want to get in the middle of family drama, but your name came up in a meeting yesterday. One of your parent suppliers showed me paperwork with your signature on it, authorizing a pretty hefty advance payment. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? I haven't signed anything. That's what I thought, Henderson replied. But the supplier swears it came straight from the company. The scary part, if that deal goes south, you're the one on the hook. Not them. I hung up and immediately drove to my parentsuffice. When I stormed into the conference room, Dad was there with stacks of papers, Mom at his side, and of course, Mark lounging in a chair like he owned the place. Where is the contract with my name on it? I demanded. They all froze. Mom looked confused. Dad frowned. Mark smirked. What contract? Dad asked carefully. The one with my forged signature that authorizes a massive advance to Henderson as supplier. Don't play dumb, I know about it. Dad's face turned red. He reached into the pile of papers and pulled out a document. My breath caught in my throat. There it was, my name, my signature accepted. Wasn't he mine? Mom covered her mouth. Oh, may God. I grabbed the paper and shoved it in front of Mark. You did this, he leaned back. Calm as ever. Prove it. The audacity nearly broke me. I could feel the fury vibrating through my hands. You're forging contracts now. Do you realize you could destroy the entire company? You could ruin me. Mark shrugged. If you're dumb enough to let them hand you power, then you'd better learn what it feels like to hold it. Consider it a test. Dad slammed his fist on the table. Enough. Mark this, I sent you a game. You've crossed a line. But here's the thing. I could tell even Dad didn't know what to do. For years, he de-enabled Mark as failures. Brushed them aside, covered for him. now faced with actual fraud. He looked paralyzed. I turned to my parents, my voice sharp. You see now, this is who you've been protecting all these years. This is who you chose over me. And now he is dragging all of us down with him. Mom was crying. Dad was silent. Mark just smirked like he won something. That was when it hit me. This wasn't just about saving the business anymore. This was about survival mine. There's maybe even Mark S. Because if he kept going, it wouldn't just be bankruptcy on the line. It would be criminal charges. And the terrifying part, I wasn't sure if my parents would let him go, or drag me down right alongside him. The fallout came faster than I expected. Within days of discovering the forged contract, I started getting calls not from clients this time, but from lawyers. One particularly sharp-voiced attorney left me a voicemail that made my stomach twist. Mr. My last name. We need clarification on the documents you signed, authorizing advance funds. If these terms aren't honored, we'll be forced to pursue damages. Please respond immediately. Signed documents damages my reputation. The career I'd fought to build outside of my parents' shadow, it was all suddenly in jeopardy, and I hadn't even lifted a pen. I drove straight to my parents' office again, papers in hand. My dad looked 10 years older, dark circles under his eyes. Mom sat wringing her hands, eyes red from crying. Mark, as usual, leaned back like he had nothing to lose. This is it, I said, slamming the voicemail transcript on the desk. It's no longer about business struggles or family pride. This is fraud. This is criminal. And if we don't act now, it won't just be your company on trial at LLB because that's my name on those contracts. Dad rubbed his temples, whispering something like a prayer. Mom started sobbing quietly. But Mark, he smirked. You're so dramatic, he drawled. Nobody else going to jail. It's just business posturing. They bluff all the time, I snapped. You forged my signature mark. You impersonated me. Do you have any idea what that means legally? You could take me down with you. His face hardened for the first time. Maybe you shouldn't have come back. You think you're the savior here, but all you've done is stir things up. I had everything under control until you showed up. I laughed bitterly. Under control, the company is bleeding out. Clients are leaving in droves, and you're faking contracts to cover your incompetence. That's not control. That's desperation. Dad finally slammed his fist on the table. Enough, both of you? His voice cracked, the weight of years of denial finally breaking him. Mark, if what your brother says is true, then you've crossed the line I can't protect you from. For the first time, I saw a flicker of fear cross Mark's face. But just as quickly, it hardened into defiance. You wouldn't dare cut me out. I'm your son. Dad's jaw clenched. So is he pointed at me. And maybe it's time I admitted, I've been protecting the wrong one. Silence fell like a hammer. Mom's sobs filled the room. Mark's fists clenched, his knuckles white. And me, for the first time in years, I felt seen, vindicated. But then the phone rang. Dad answered, his face draining of color. It was a client. A big one, and they weren't just upset about delays. They were threatening to pull their contract and sue for breach. The moment Dad hung up, I knew what was coming. He turned to me, desperation edged into every line of his face. Son, he said, voice low, if you don't step in now, This company won't be last another month. And that was the moment I realized my parents weren't asking me anymore. They were begging. But the question still not at me. Was I saving a business or walking into a trap my brother had laid? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my apartment with a stack of documents spread across the table, my phone buzzing non-stop with voicemails from clients, lawyers, even employees. Everyone wanted answers, and all of them assumed I was responsible for the mess because my name was on those contracts. By sunrise, I knew I had two options: walk away, let the company implode, and hope the fallout didn't stick to me. Step in, officially take control, and risk a full-scale war with my brother. Both choices terrified me. But then I thought about all the years I had poured into that company, the late nights, the sacrifices, the way I had been cast aside like trash while Mark got a free pass. I wasn't about to let him burn the whole place down just to feed his ego. The next morning I walked into a law firm downtown. I laid everything on the table: the forged contracts, the voicemails, the family dynamics. The attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Collins, listened carefully and finally said, "You're in deep. If those signatures hold up, you'll take the fall. But if you move quickly, there's a path. File for an emergency injunction. You can have yourself installed as acting director until the fraud investigation is complete. If your evidence is solid, a judge will see through this." My pulse quickened, and my brother Collins gave me a thin smile. He'll be sidelined permanently if the fraud sticks. It wasn't an easy choice, but I signed the paperwork that afternoon. By the end of the week, I was standing in a courtroom, documents in hand, my brother glaring at me from across the aisle. My parents sat in the back, pale and silent. The judge reviewed the evidence, his frown deepening at every forged page. "This is serious, pending further investigation. I'm granting temporary control of the company to the petitioner." His eyes flicked toward me. "Effective immediately." Mark shot up from his chair. "You can't do this. This is my company." The judge's gavel came down with a sharp crack. Not anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time, Mark wasn't smirking. He looked cornered, like a wild animal stripped of its last escape route. Afterward, outside the courthouse, Dad pulled me aside. His voice shook as he said, "I never thought it would come to this. But maybe this is what should have happened years ago." I looked at him, torn between anger and a strange hollow relief. "You had every chance to stop him, and you didn't." He didn't argue. He just looked at the ground. But when I got back to the office, reality hit. Taking control wasn't a victory, it was a battlefield. The employees were nervous, the clients were skeptical, and half the files were a mess thanks to Mark's sabotage. And the worst part, Mark wasn't gone. He might have lost his title, but I knew him too well. He wasn't going to disappear quietly. If anything, the real fight was just beginning. Mark wasn't going to go quietly. I knew it the moment I walked back into the office and saw him lurking near the front desk, a look on his face that mixed fury and calculation. By mid-morning, my suspicions were confirmed. One of our key clients called in a panic. "We received an email from someone claiming to be your brother. The client said they threatened to void our contracts unless we paid additional fees. They said if you interfered, we'd lose everything." I froze. My pulse spiked. Mark had escalated from forged documents to outright intimidation. He just being reckless. He was trying to sink the company, ruin me, and take revenge all at once. I grabbed my phone and called Collins immediately. He has gone too far this time. We need to move fast. Within the hour, legal notices were drafted, emails traced, and phone records examined. Every action Mark had taken left a trail, and Collins was relentless. When I confronted him directly, he looked like he'd even expecting it. "You think you've won?" he spat. "This I sent you over. You've taken the company, the clients, but you will never take the satisfaction of beating me where it counts. They'll never truly respect you the way they respected me." I stepped closer, calm but deadly serious. "You already lost, Mark. Not because I'm smarter, not because I'm stronger, but because you refused to play by the rules while I built something real. You gambled everything on lies and sabotage. And now those lies are going to expose you." The next days were a blur of legal filings, client reassurance calls, and operational triage. By the end of the week, Mark was officially suspended, pending an internal and legal investigation. Some of his manipulations were criminal. Some were just recklessly unethical. Either way, he had no choice but to step back. When the dust settled, I finally stood in the office, looking out over the employees who had been loyal to me from the beginning. The company wasn't perfect. It was damaged, and it would take time to rebuild, but the foundation was finally solid. Mom came up behind me, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for everything. We should have listened to you years ago." Didn't he know what to say? Words felt useless, so I nodded. It wasn't tea forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement. Dad approached, neck, shoulders heavy. "You've done what we never could. You saved what matters." I finally turned to them, the weight of years of anger and disappointment pressing down. "Didn't he save it for you?" "I saved it because it needed saving. Because I could. And because someone had to hold Mark accountable." They both flinched at the truth, but they understood. Mark, he left a few weeks later. Not quietly, not humbly, but without power, without clients, and without the shield of parental protection. He was finally forced to face the consequences of his actions. As I sat in my office, reviewing the first of many rebuild plans, I realized something. This wasn't just about family loyalty or revenge. It was about self-respect, competence, and knowing when to fight and when to let others' mistakes teach them their own lessons. I still love my family, but I don't need their approval anymore. And for the first time in my life, I'm leading not just the company, but my own story on my own terms. The fire they lit when they fired me years ago, I finally learned how to channel it. Not to destroy, not to punish, but to build. And that, I think, is the ultimate victory.